With SCAN2FX Mesh Modeler, together with SCAN2FX Exporter for Clarisse, you can easily convert real-world environments into ultra-high-resolution textured meshes. We start with the scanned point cloud of our scene in Pharaoh scene on the left. This environment was not manually modeled, but recorded with our LiDAR scanner, fully replicating the real world. We will now convert the point cloud to a textured mesh environment in Clarisse using the SCAN2FX tools. We created a high-resolution mesh of our scene with SCAN2FX Mesh Modeler's scan-based meshing. Next, instead of texturing the mesh through a lengthy computation, we will complete a special one-time export of the scanned panoramas with our SCAN2FX Exporter for Clarisse. With the SCAN2FX Exporter for Clarisse, all your panoramas and photos of your scene can be exported to Clarisse for real-time texturing through SCAN2FX's special shaders and controls straight within Clarisse. There are a few things to note. SCAN2FX utilizes the full source imagery resolution instead of the classical way of applying a fixed texture resolution where images get downsampled. SCAN2FX can also work with high dynamic range EXR imagery for the most demanding productions. We skip ahead briefly for the export to complete. The panorama and photo export took only 137 seconds for our scene. We switch over to Clarisse to import the exporter file. We already previously loaded the mesh we generated with SCAN2FX Mesh Modeler into the same Clarisse project. SCAN2FX automatically creates a SCAN2FX control panel, materials, cameras, nodes for texture, 3D paint, and a locator within Clarisse. We now drop the SCAN2FX material onto the mesh. Clarisse is now loading the source imagery for the scene as specified by SCAN2FX. Notice how the mesh appears all green. Green is the default occlusion color set in the SCAN2FX panel. As it turns out, we need to make sure the mesh aligns with the scan coordinate system. We align the mesh to the correct coordinates of the scans by assigning the SCAN2FX locator that SCAN2FX created within Clarisse as a parent to our mesh. We turn on Inherit Transform to apply the transform to our mesh. The mesh now immediately gets textured by applying the scan panoramas in real time. In the SCAN2FX control panel, we can control how SCAN2FX textures the mesh. For example, we can alter the occlusion color in real time. We leave it at black for now to make it look like shadows. We can also check on individual scans and photos to view how those scans affect the texture by themselves. All the texturing happens in real time on our 62 million plus polygon mesh. The unique SCAN2FX workflow with Clarisse can handle billion polygon environments at the highest image resolution levels. We also have additional photos that were aligned or created based on the 3D view in SCAN2FX Photo Projector. To give you some additional background, SCAN2FX Photo Projector is an optional module that allows alignment of additional photos or panoramas captured with other cameras, such as DSLRs. Alternatively, one can also create virtual photos in Photo Projector from a 3D camera view, and then fill in missing texture details from that perspective with your favorite photo editing tool. In the SCAN2FX control panel inside Clarisse, we can turn View Textures off to see a color visualization of how each scan or photo gets currently applied. For each scan or photo, SCAN2FX created a node in Clarisse to enable 3D painting with that scan or photo. SCAN2FX will paint over the automated baseline texture. We select a particular scan node and then the particle paint tool to paint with that scan. This workflow allows us to smoothen out transitions between imagery with different lighting or looks, as well as to remove possible artifacts. If needed, we can later align additional photos from a DSLR camera and re-import those into Clarisse. We can also create additional photos from the 3D view in SCAN2FX Photo Projector and then edit those. With this unique workflow, areas that were never photographed by the scanner could be filled in. Any occluded areas can be filled in after the fact. We can turn on Mask Only to only see the painted areas that get overlaid over the automatic texture. We can also view only the portions of individual scans that we are going to paint over by selecting the individual scans. This unique industry-leading SCAN2FX workflow can create billion-polygon environments at unprecedented resolution levels. Even millimeter details such as grout lines are visible as geometric detail. While other software may struggle with this level of resolution, Clarisse enables close to real-time navigation through those meshes. There's more. A mirror was automatically placed in the scene and it accurately reflects the environment just like a real mirror. When creating fill polygons in SCAN2FX Mesh Modeler, each polygon component can be labeled with keywords such as mirror, glass, window, or water. Once exported from SCAN2FX Mesh Modeler in Clarisse format, SCAN2FX automatically creates and assigns the appropriate material within Clarisse upon import. These materials can then be further tweaked inside Clarisse. SCAN2FX also created window panels, which the scanner hadn't picked up, and now the window material can be edited in real time in Clarisse. The SCAN2FX workflow allows for a quick turnaround of complete photorealistic scenes captured from real-world environments. Here we show one more example where we utilized high dynamic range EXR panoramas captured with a DSLR camera to fully texture the mesh in real time. The high dynamic range panoramas in EXR format were aligned with SCAN2FX Photo Projector and are now textured in real time onto the mesh. This example mesh consists of 258 million polygons and can be easily handled by Clarisse with gigapixels of image data. Even the fine print on signs and magazines is readable. While Clarisse can be employed for high-resolution renders and animations, the finished textures can also be reapplied to low-resolution meshes and then texture-baked within Clarisse for real-time applications. SCAN2FX empowers a rapid workflow to convert real-world environments into photorealistic virtual sets.